Okay, folks, you should have note sheet number 1 in front of you right now. We're going to just go ahead and review a few things from algebra for this first unit of study, just so that we're all on the same page with, in this case, we're talking about signed numbers, which just means does it have a plus sign or a negative sign assigned to it, and then also our order of operations. So you should be familiar with these things from previous algebra work, but let's go ahead and review them. After this lesson, you should be able to perform numeric operations with signed numbers without a calculator, and you should be able to evaluate and simplify expressions using the order of operations. And we will be reviewing order of operations in the back side of this page. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be talking about when we're looking at signed numbers having to do with addition. Anytime we have, add a positive plus a positive, it's going to be positive result. When we have a negative plus a negative, it's going to result in a negative value. And we're adding a negative and a positive. Well, first we have to consider, is the positive number larger or is the negative number larger? So this is going to depend on which one is larger. So depends on larger number. Okay, so if the positive number is larger than the negative number, the result is positive. If the negative number is larger than the positive, then its result is going to be negative as well. All right, and then we have here our subtraction section. So here we have same, change, change. Keep sign in front of first term the same, change the operator, and change the sign in front of the second term. So this just means that we're doing 5 plus negative 7. Okay, so in this case, when we were looking at addition, the negative number here is larger, so the result is going to be negative 2. Again, you should be able to do this without the use of a calculator. And we have two signs next to each other here. Those are both negatives. Two negatives become a positive, so we end up with 5 plus 7. That's going to equal 12. So notice the difference between this statement or expression, 5 minus 7, it results in negative 2. 5 minus negative 7 results in positive 12. So it's very different. So it's really important that you understand how to change those signs. Okay, let's go back to, let's go on to number 3. We have two signs together. Those two signs are negative. Both of them are negative. So I'm going to rewrite this with a positive sign there because two negatives become positive. And our answer, because this negative is smaller than the positive number wins, which means that we're going to result in a positive 2. Basically just saying 7 minus 5 there. Okay, and then we have two negatives. This really is just negative 5 plus negative 7. Okay, and we have two negatives, which means we're going to keep it negative when we add those together. Okay, so all of this should be pretty familiar to you. You shouldn't have too much trouble understanding these things because we've been using these rules for quite a while now, even back in middle school. Multiplication. If there is exactly one negative sign, then the answer is going to be negative. Otherwise, the answer is positive. So when you're looking at a problem, if everything is positive, your result is going to be positive. If everything is negative, when you're multiplying, then your result is still positive. The only time that something is going to be negative is if you have one single number with a negative sign. All right, so we'll keep that in mind. And then with division, similarly with the multiplication, if there's exactly one negative, then the answer is negative, otherwise it's positive. So if we're dividing positive by positive, again, the result is positive. If you, for step here, number 2, if everything is negative and you're dividing, the result is positive. The only time that your result is going to be negative is if you have one number that is negative, like this one example here, and you're dividing it by a positive, or vice versa. So one negative symbol indicates that you are going to have a negative result, either when you're multiplying or dividing. All right, let's try a couple of examples down here. The ones that I don't do in this video, you are responsible for doing. I already see one error in our worksheet here, and that's part G. if you would take a look at that one, notice that there's some kind of square there. Let's change this problem to -5 plus 4. All right, so take the time to change that right now so that you don't miss that later. All right, part A. We have an addition problem here. We have one negative number, one positive number. The positive number is larger. So really I'm just saying 6 minus 2, and my result would be 4. In part B, I have two negative numbers, but I'm adding, so because I have two negative numbers and I'm adding, I'm going to keep that negative sign, and that's just going to be -15. And sometimes it's helpful to think about if you start off at, if I put this all on a number line and here's 0, and the negative numbers go in this direction, so -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. If I start at -2 and I add -13, I'm really adding more negative numbers to my -2. So remember, you're going toward the left of the number line there. Okay, in part C, I have two negative signs together. That's going to become a positive, so I could rewrite this -18 plus 4. And my negative number is larger, so therefore I'm going to keep that negative sign. And again, that could be rewritten 4 minus 18. Of course, you can't subtract 18 from 4 without going negative. So there's our answer, -14. Well, let's skip down to a couple that are more like multiplication and division. In part F here, we have two negative numbers. And remember, a fraction is really just saying -9 divide by -3. Okay, so that's what a fraction is. It's a division sign, division symbol, that line in between the two numbers. So we have two negative numbers here. And anytime we have two negatives, that's going to result in positive. So 9 divided by 3 is just 3. All right, I want to go down to L. If you take a look at L here, how many negative signs do we see? Well, I only see this one. So our result is going to be negative because really we're multiplying in between here, right? Those parentheses just mean to multiply. So 6 times 2 times -4. Well, 6 times 2 is 12, and times -4 is going to be -48 when we finish. And you should be able to do all these problems without any use of a calculator. So the few that I didn't finish here, please make sure you finish those on your notes. Go ahead and turn the page. Turn your paper over, and we're going to continue. On this side, you see that we have the order of operations, and if we look at the bulleted points at the top of the page here, let's just read through those. Take a look at the following expression. Okay, what do we do first? And what do we do after that? And what do we do after that? So there's going to be maybe several steps in order to find a solution to this, and actually simplifying it. Now, if there isn't a universal agreement on what order we simplify this expression, many different answers would result. And to prevent that, we have to use the order of operations. So you may have remembered, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, but what does that really stand for? You should be able to identify that this is for parentheses. So anything that is in parentheses, we have to take care of first. Okay? Exponents are next. Then we have multiplication, division, adding, and subtracting. It is important, if you see here this warning, if multiplication and division or addition and subtraction are the only operators remaining in the expression, simplify left to right, even if division or addition are first. Okay, so we have to work left to right, otherwise we're going to end up with the incorrect information. Notice here we only have division, multiplication, division. So we have to work left to right on this. We can't just pick and choose which ones we like first. So we absolutely have to do 50 divided by 5 first, which results in 10. Then I have to multiply by 3. That results in 30. Then I can divide by 10 because I'm working left to right. Okay, if I don't work left to right, my answer may not come out correctly, and you should have come out to 3. Without the use of a calculator, you should be able to do that. Again, here we have subtraction, addition, And subtraction, we do need to work left to right, so 50 minus 5 is 45. And then I can add the 3, which is 48. And then I can subtract 4, which is 44. So just recall that you want to work left to right anytime you see these types of order of operation problems. Okay, so can you think of another way to remember PEMDAS? In this space here, you may want to stop the video if you're watching this at home. Write at least one other saying that you could use to abbreviate PEMDAS. Okay, so even though you might remember it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, spend a few minutes, or sorry, a few seconds even, to write down another way that you can remember that. All right, so some of these other problems here look a little challenging. I'm going to skip the ones that seem a little bit more simple and go to the ones that are more challenging. And remember, let's just go ahead and start with E. I want to do my parentheses first, then so that result is -3, and I can put that in parentheses. All right, so from this bracket right here, I have 4 plus 5 plus a -3, or really it's just a -3, so 9 minus 3 is 6. So from this parentheses, I ended up with a 6. Now outside the parentheses, I have a 3 squared divided by 5. Okay, so I'm running out of room here a little bit, so let me just pull this down here. So I have a 6 plus a 3 squared divided by 5. What is 3 squared? Well, that's just 9. And this result is 15, and then divide by 5. So again, our answer is 3, similar to what we had in one of the other problems. But that's a lot of work, lots of steps. Again, if you don't do it in the correct order according to our rules of operation, then you won't come out to the correct answer. Okay, just a reminder, in part J here, we have an exponent of 0. Anything raised to the exponent of 0 is just 1. Okay, so this whole thing is just going to be 1 because it's raised to the 0 power. All right, that's just a hint for that one. I do want you to work on that. And then I also have, let's do H together right now. And this is just a fraction, so I could rewrite this whole thing, -45 divided by, and we do want to take care of everything in the denominator, as if it is, you know, its own parentheses there. So let's go ahead and do this. This 8 has to be distributed to whatever's inside the parentheses. Well, this is just a result of 3. So I have 8 times 3 minus 9 inside the parentheses. So 24 minus 9 is what I have. And let's see what else. 24 minus 9 is 15. So I have -45 divided by a positive 15, and that's going to result in -3. Okay, lots of 3 answers, or -3. All right, so you're going to be finishing up the problems that we didn't finish, and hopefully you have enough space on your paper to make it neat. And if you would please, make sure you indicate what your answer is somehow. Notice I've circled my answers on this page. If you're watching this at home, of course, feel free to stop the video, rewind it if you need to, and then, of course, ask any questions that you're still not clear on, because there will be an assignment that you'll need to complete as part of this lesson.